My name is Marcus Weir. I'm 34 years old, and I work as an agricultural surveyor. What I'm about to tell you is the exact sequence of events regarding my inspection of the Harlan grain facility. The elevator had been closed for 11 years, but someone was still paying the electric bill. I found that out by accident. I was conducting a structural survey on decommissioned grain storage facilities across rural Nebraska, county contract work. Nothing exciting. Most of these old elevators are just concrete and rust, property line disputes waiting to happen. But when I pulled the utility records for the Harlan facility, the account was active. Monthly payments, exposed wiring in a building that was supposed to have been condemned in 2015. I called the county clerk's office to flag it as an error. The woman on the phone got quiet for a moment, then told me the account was listed under a name she couldn't find in any county database. She said the name was D. Hell, no first name, no address, just a PO box that hadn't been registered in over 20 years. I should have let it go. Should have noted the discrepancy in my survey report and moved on to the next site. But that answer, the non-answer, sat with me the whole drive out to Harlan County. The elevator stood about a mile outside of town, just off a county road that didn't see much traffic anymore. You could spot it from a distance, a tall, pale column of poured concrete rising out of flat farmland, with a row of cylindrical storage bins flanking its south side. The facility had been operated by a regional co-op until 2013, when the co-op consolidated operations 40 miles east. After that, the property was supposed to revert to the county, but the paperwork was never completed. No one ever formally took ownership. The building just sat there, unclaimed, on the edge of a field that someone else was leasing to grow winter wheat. I arrived on a Tuesday morning. The access road was unpaved, but surprisingly well maintained. No major washouts, no overgrown ditches. That struck me as odd. County doesn't usually grade roads that lead to condemned properties. The main elevator building was about 90 feet tall, with an attached head house at the top and receiving pit at the base. The metal siding on the lower floors was streaked with oxidation, but structurally, the place looked intact. Much more intact than I expected for 11 years of neglect. The windows on the ground floor office section were boarded from the inside with plywood, clean plywood, not warped, not weathered, relatively recent. I noted this in my field report and walked the perimeter. Around the back, near the bin access tunnels, I found the first thing that made me stop. There was a padlock on the tunnel grate, which was normal, but it was a modern padlock. Brass-colored, combination style, no visible rust. I checked the other tunnel grates. Same thing. 5 access points, 5 new padlocks. I photographed everything and tried the main entrance, a steel personnel door on the east side of the office section. It was locked, but the lock was the original hardware, a keyed deadbolt from the co-op days. I had a county-issued master key set for decommissioned agricultural properties. The third key I tried turned the bolt. The office section was small, 2 rooms. The front room had a service counter, some built-in shelving, a calendar on the wall from 2012. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust except the floor. There were paths in the dust. Not footprints exactly, more like someone had swept or dragged something along the same route multiple times. The paths led from the front door to the back room, and from the back room to an interior door that connected to the elevator's main shaft structure. The back room was where I found the ledger. It was sitting on a metal desk, open, like someone had been writing in it recently. A composition notebook, black and white marbled cover, college ruled. The handwriting inside was small, meticulous, almost mechanical in its neatness. Each entry was a date followed by a series of numbers and abbreviations I didn't immediately understand. The dates were recent. The most recent entry was from 4 days ago. I flipped back through the pages. The entries went back months. Some had small notations in the margins, single words like received, moved, checked. One recurring abbreviation was bin 4. It appeared every few entries, always followed by a temperature reading. Grain bins don't need temperature monitoring when they're empty. I set the ledger down and opened the interior door. The smell hit me first. Not rot, not grain dust. Something chemical, almost antiseptic, layered underneath the old concrete and metal scent of the elevator shaft. Like bleach, but not quite. Something close to it. The shaft interior was dark. My flashlight caught the massive vertical bucket elevator, the belt and bucket system that used to carry grain to the top of the structure for distribution into the bins. It was motionless, obviously, but the belt looked maintained. No visible deterioration, no sagging, and the floor of the shaft had been swept clean. I followed the ground level tunnel system toward the storage bins. In an operational elevator, these tunnels run beneath the bins, connecting to the discharge gates where grain flows out for loading. They're typically 3 to 4 feet wide and about 5 feet tall. You move through them in a crouch. The tunnels at Harlan were dry, which was unusual. Usually decommissioned sites have water intrusion issues. These were bone dry and, again, clean. I reached bin 4 first. The discharge gate at the base of the bin was welded shut. Not rusted shut, welded. Someone had run a bead of weld around the entire gate mechanism, sealing it permanently. I ran my flashlight up through the narrow inspection port above the gate. The inside of the bin was dark, but I could see that the floor, the cone-shaped steel floor of the bin, had been modified, flattened. Someone had laid plywood sheeting over the cone to create a level surface. Through the inspection port, I could make out shapes on that plywood floor. A folding cot, a bucket, what looked like a bundle of fabric, and tubing, clear plastic tubing that ran from somewhere above, down the interior wall of the bin, to a point near the cot. I pulled back from the inspection port and sat in the tunnel for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. Living space. Inside a sealed grain bin. In a condemned elevator that someone was paying to keep electrified. I checked the other bins. Bins 1 through 3 were empty, their discharge gates rusted and normal. Bin 5 had the same weld treatment as bin 4, but when I looked through its inspection port, I couldn't see much. The interior was darker, and my flashlight angle was wrong. I could only make out that the floor had been similarly modified with plywood. I went back to bin 4. I pressed my ear against the steel wall, and I heard something that I will never be able to adequately describe the feeling of hearing. Breathing. A slow, rhythmic, nasal breathing. The sound of someone asleep. It was faint, distorted by the curved steel walls, but unmistakable. There was a person inside that bin. The air changed for me then. The whole building changed. Every clean surface, every new padlock, the swept floors, the active utility account, all of it reorganized in my mind into a single coherent picture. And that picture was terrible. The air changed for me then. The whole building changed. Every clean surface, every new padlock, the swept floors, the active utility account, all of it reorganized in my mind into a single coherent picture. And that picture was terrible. I moved back through the tunnel as quietly as I could. My hands were shaking, and I kept bumping the tunnel walls with my shoulders. Every contact point echoed, and each echo made me freeze and listen. The breathing from bin 4 didn't change. When I reached the shaft interior, I looked up. The bucket elevator rose into darkness above me, 90 feet to the head house. And from somewhere up there, I heard a second sound. Footsteps. Someone was in the head house, moving with purpose, a steady, unhurried rhythm. The footsteps crossed from one side to the other, then stopped. A metallic scraping sound followed, like something being dragged across a steel floor. Then the footsteps resumed, moving toward the top of the bucket elevator shaft. I turned off my flashlight. I stood in the dark at the base of that shaft and listened to someone move around above me. They didn't call out. They didn't seem alarmed. They were doing something routine. I could hear small mechanical sounds, latches, something being poured, the creak of a handle being turned. Then I heard the electric motor engage. The bucket elevator belt shuddered and began to move. The ancient system groaned to life, the belt cycling slowly, the steel buckets rising and falling in their endless loop. I pressed myself against the tunnel entrance as the shaft filled with mechanical noise. The belt ran for approximately 2 minutes, then stopped. In the silence that followed, I heard the footsteps descend, not down the external ladder. From an interior access, a maintenance stairway built into the elevator that I hadn't located yet. The sound was moving lower through the building, steadily, methodically, floor by floor. I went for the office. I crossed the back room, crossed the front room, and reached the personnel door. I opened it as carefully as I could, slipped outside, and pulled it shut behind me. I didn't lock it. I didn't want the sound. I walked to my truck. I didn't run. I don't know why. Something in my brain was telling me that running would make noise, and I wanted to leave quietly. I drove back to town and called the county sheriff from the gas station parking lot. I told them what I'd found. The deputy who took my call said he'd send someone out. He asked me to stay available for a follow-up. The sheriff's department went to the Harlan elevator the following morning. I wasn't there for the entry. They didn't want me on site. But I got a call that afternoon from a deputy named Carver who asked me very specific questions about the interior layout, the bins, the tunnels, and the ledger. He told me they found the ledger on the desk, just as I described. He told me they cut through the weld on bin 4 and found the living space, the cot, the bucket, the tubing, which was connected to a water supply that someone had plumbed from a well tap outside the building, running it through the wall and down the interior of the bin. He told me there was someone inside bin 4. A.N., adult woman. He didn't tell me her name, and I didn't ask. He said she was disoriented and had difficulty speaking. He said she had been in the bin for what they estimated was a long time, based on her physical condition. He said the plywood floor was worn smooth in a small circular path around the cot, like someone pacing the same tight loop for months. He told me bin 5 was empty, but the plywood floor inside, it had the same circular wear pattern, the same smooth, polished track from someone walking the same small circle over and over, inside a sealed steel cylinder in the dark. He asked me if I saw anyone leave the building. I told him I didn't. He asked me if I could describe the sounds I heard, the rhythm, the weight of them. I told him everything I could remember. They never identified the individual who had been in the head house. The P.O. box for D. Pell was traced to a mail sender in a neighboring county that had closed in 2004. The electric bill payments had been made with money orders purchased at various locations across a 3-county area. No surveillance footage. No consistent handwriting on the money orders. The master key set I used to enter the building was reissued by the county. And when they audited the key distribution records, they found that a second set had been checked out 8 years ago under a maintenance request that no one in the county office could attribute to a specific employee. Someone had built a key, created an account, plumbed water into a grain bin, welded the doors shut from the outside, and maintained the facility regularly, carefully, over a period that investigators now believe spans years. The woman from bin 4 was taken to a hospital in Kearney. I don't know what happened to her after that. I was told not to discuss the details publicly while the investigation was active. But here's the part I still think about. The part I can't stop thinking about. When I was standing in that shaft with my flashlight off, listening to the sounds moving through the structure, I heard something else. A sound from the direction of bin 4. Not breathing this time. Knocking. Soft, deliberate knocking. 3 knocks, a pause, then 3 more, like a signal, like a routine. And from somewhere above me, deeper within the structure, there was a response. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more. Whoever was in that bin knew the person responsible for maintaining that place, knew their patterns, knew their signals, and when they heard those familiar sounds, they didn't scream, they didn't pound on the walls, they knocked, gently, the way you'd knock on someone's door to let them know you were home. That's the part that keeps me up. Not the bin, not the dark, not the sealed doors. The fact that someone had been kept in a steel cylinder for so long that the arrival of another person had become a comfort. That the sound of those footsteps coming down was the closest thing to company they had, and they greeted it. The Harlan elevator is still standing. The county filed for demolition, but the paperwork has been delayed. Something about an environmental review. Asbestos in the original construction materials, so it sits there, a mile outside of town, at the end of a well-graded road that nobody should be maintaining. I drove past it once, about 3 months after everything happened. The plywood was back on the windows, new plywood,